Hello, lords and ladies. Tonight we're going to talk about something very creepy. The Black Death, 1347 to about 1351. We have a couple of objectives for this section of the Middle Ages. We're going to try to identify and discuss the causes of the Black Death and why people got this sickness, and we're going to evaluate the effects of it. So what are the lasting and long-term things that impact Europe and its development, and how are they affected by the outbreak of this terrible, terrible disease that we'll talk a lot more about in class, but we'll set up the basic origins and the effects today. So the causes, the origins, and the effects of the Black Death. If you think you're going to need more time to write, you're going to want to pause it soon because we're going to move on. Okay, in terms of meeting the objectives for the day, being able to talk about the causes of the plague, we're going to look at those first. So the origins, how it started. I'm going to show you a clip in class, but in 1346 the plague breaks out in part. It had broken out in China first. And so when the Mongol armies are fighting against the Italian soldiers, they fling the bodies of the dead who had died of the plague over the battle lines, and from there it gets onto the trade ships and sent back to Europe. So we found out later that the plague was in fact caused by infected rats and fleas that transmit the disease to humans. Now there are people who dispute this, but most historians accept this as being the means of transport of the disease. The merchants who are going back bring these infected rats and fleas back with them unknowingly, and the plague starts to spread throughout Europe. So the origins is that the rats and the fleas transmit the diseases to humans. Now again, there are two strains of the plague, and we'll look at those when we're in class, but the one that we're going to focus on and that you see mostly throughout Europe is the bubonic plague, which has the buboes that come out on the body. So if you think you're going to need more time, you want to think about starting to pause it, because we are going to move on to a few pictures that I wanted to show you that kind of depict Middle Age beliefs about the plague and show the viewpoint of the time. So pause it if you need. Okay, here's one scene depicting the Black Death, having people being carted outside of the homes, and then someone would come and take away the dead. You see people covering their noses, trying to avoid it. These people are laying, and they're covered in what we call the buboes. Buboes are what the plague is named after, and those big bumps under the skin. Here's a picture of a rat. I'm sure, ladies, you're loving this right now. But that they're believed to be the carriers of the plague. And here we have a map that depicts and shows you the spread of the Black Death. So when you're looking at the different green colors, it tells you different time periods. So December 1347 is the darkest green that you're going to see. Then the next up would be June of 1348, followed by the lighter being December, okay, and so on and so forth. You get the point. You see that it spreads all throughout Europe. Now, what are the effects of this? Why do we learn about this? Why is this such an issue, and why is it a big deal? Well, for sheer population control issues, right, the fact that Europe and China lost 1/3 of its population, that's a tremendous amount of people to lose in such a short period, over 4 years. So that in itself is going to have some lasting repercussions. The next element to this is that people start to question the church. They start blaming God and challenging the church, saying that why would a just and fair and merciful God bring such a disease upon us? Now, there's another aspect of this where the people start to blame Jewish people, saying that they in fact poisoned the wells, and that's how the plague was spread across Europe, because Jews were not seeming to get sick in some areas. And so we'll talk about that more in class. And then you see really the collapse of the feudal structure and the manorial system. So all of these things are major effects of the Black Plague. And we've talked about the feudal and manor system already being on its way out. This will be the final nail in the coffin, so to speak. So that's the basics of the Black Plague. We're going to talk a lot more about it in class and do some more work with it, just so that you understand, and hopefully this lays the groundwork, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good night.